Welcome, welcome. This is Joe from Joe Thinks. I got up this morning and my wife looked at me and she said, "You know what, Joe? You know what you should do?" And I looked at her and she told me, "You should draw a picture of the Sanderson sisters for Halloween." And I thought about it and I'm like, yeah, that is a good idea. Now, a little background. We watch Hocus Pocus as an annual Halloween movie in our family. A lot of families have that tradition where you watch a certain set of movies around that particular holiday, and Nightmare Before Christmas and Hocus Pocus are a couple of Halloween movies for us. I think last Halloween we watched The Great Pumpkin as well, or The Glum Pumpkin, I think it was. But instead of just talking about Hocus Pocus during this video, I thought maybe I'll do some research and talk about Halloween too, you know? The interesting thing that I found was I still pretty much have already found most of the information about Halloween throughout my lifetime. I explored different religions when I was a kid, and different Celtic and Gaelic religions were also areas of study. Halloween as we know it, holiday actually traces its roots all the way back to the ancient Celtic. And they had a holiday that was also like their New Year's. You see, they knew winter was coming, and November 1st actually was the beginning of a brand new year for them. So they had this gigantic festival where they had huge bonfires, and there were huge parties, and they believed that spirits could come and visit them, and they'd leave food and wine out for these spirits, and they'd burn crops and sacrifice animals, as was the norm way back in ancient times. We're talking thousands of years ago. Interestingly enough, the ancient Celts would sit around and also make predictions and try to tell the future through divination and stuff of what was to come. And some of the higher ups, like priests and stuff, would make predictions and stuff. And a lot of people would hang on to that throughout the winter. It would give them hope. The spring will, eventually come back. They also would wear outfits to avoid spirits, because not everybody wanted the spirits to hang out. Some of them wanted to be left alone, and they'd put on costumes, and that's how they would be, left alone. So, when I was young, Halloween to me was all about candy and the costumes. I'd dress up as a Ninja Turtle or a character from Mortal Kombat, and I'd go around and have a fun time with my friends and my family, and we'd go door to door and trick-or-treat and get candy. As I got older, I learned that there was more about traditions and things like that, and that there's a whole religion based around it. Like the ancient Celts, their Halloween is actually called Samhain, and many pagans today hold Samhain to be a very, very important holiday in the calendar year, as well. Now, when I became a teenager, Halloween wasn't really that important to me anymore, except for the party that would usually be on Halloween. It was more about the night before, Devil's Night. You see, on Devil's Night, many of my more conservative friends would join us, and we would take some eggs that we would stockpile on a back porch for a long period of time and fling them at houses and things like that. The way that we did it was we would drive around, initially in a buddy of mine's vehicle and then later in my mom's car. The people in the backseat or in the cars would ask the driver to lower their window so they could fling an egg, and then everybody kind of watched what happened until we all just went crazy and were flinging eggs. And so, well, not every situation, but it's generally you don't want to be around if you throw a whole lot of those eggs, But we also stored toilet paper and paper towel and sometimes Kool-Aid. You could really nail a house. Now, I don't recommend anybody do any of these things. I don't shy away from telling folks that I was a miscreant growing up. I was a very different person back then. So what we would do is we would buy eggs around Halloween. We found that sometimes the month wasn't long enough for them to get really nice and nasty for the flinging. So we'd load them up in the car, go around and ask the driver to lower the Bombay doors and fling rotten eggs at people's houses, people on the other side of town, and enemies of your enemy, and teachers. Yes, sorry, Bob. You see, you often don't have to think about the consequences of what you're doing when you're flinging rotten eggs on Devil's Night. But there was one particular night that, well, we got some of that for ourselves. You see, the buddy in my back seat said he wanted to fling an egg. Lower the bomb bay doors. I did so. He flung the egg, but no egg exited the car. And it didn't take long for that smell to help us all realize what had just happened. The real horror of it didn't set in until we're trying to really determine what we're going to do next. I think we're going to have to clean this out of the car. We're going to have to clean this off of our clothing. And I'd like to say that morals triumphed here and we learned a very valuable lesson. But we just joked about it next Halloween while we did it again, and every Halloween there afterwards. But it just became a joke being told on Devil's Night Flinging. Now, while doing the research for this video, I found some neat things that I didn't actually know about Halloween. An interesting thing is that we don't actually know when mischief related to Halloween, Devil's Night specifically, began. We only know when it became a problem, during the colonial days. In fact, it became a normal, everyday thing to lock down the ports on Devil's Night to prevent fires and other craziness. The other thing I didn't know is, and this ranges all the way back to the ancient Celts, bobbing for apples and then looking in a mirror is supposed to yield the person you're supposed to be with or your mate for a female. That was a new one. I hadn't really heard of that before. But for me, personally, it's always been around my birthday. So every birthday party, for me, growing up, has always been like a Halloween party. And they've been interchangeable because, you know, my birthday is actually extremely close to Halloween. So thanks for watching the video all the way through. Do you have any Halloween stories from your childhood? I'd like to hear about it. Just leave a comment down below. And if you enjoyed this video, show your support by clicking that like button. It looks like a thumbs up. And if you want to be notified when I release a new video, subscribe and don't forget to click that bell. Be kind to one another and be sure to use your turn signal.